Welcome to the deep dive. We sift through all the noise to bring you what really matters, tailored just for you. Today, we're zoning in on St. Johns County, Florida. We're going to dig into their newly approved 2026 Legislative Action Plan. They call it the LAP.
Yeah, and this document is really important. It's not just some, hopeful list. The LAP spells out the county's absolute top state and federal priorities, money, laws, the works for the next cycle.
Right.
And what's key here is that the Board of County Commissioners, they all agreed, unanimous vote. Plus, County Administrator Joy Andrews stressed that every single item is about what residents actually need. Critical investments.
Okay, got it. So it's a big plan, obviously, but they've broken it down pretty neatly. 4 main areas, right? It looks like transportation infrastructure, community resilience, then agriculture and conservation, and finally, government operations. Seems logical.
Exactly. And our job today, really, is to go past just naming those pillars. We need to see how these ideas actually become, real projects, the roads you'll drive on, the flood protection for your home, even the rules about how quickly the county can bounce back after a hurricane.
All right, let's dive in. First up, the thing everyone feels, traffic, managing all this growth. Segment 1 is transportation infrastructure and mobility. Looking at the plan, what's the absolute must-do corridor they're pushing for?
Oh, it's definitely State Road 16 and County Road 16A, no question. Right now, parts of it are just 2 lanes, high speed, risky. The LAP is pushing hard to upgrade it to a 4-lane divided highway, basically from International Golf Parkway towards I-95.
And why is that specific stretch so crucial?
Well, it's about safety, yes, but also economic competitiveness.
Yeah.
It needs to handle way more traffic, connect things better. It's not just a local road anymore.
And that flows right into the next point, doesn't it? The connection point at I-95, International Golf Parkway interchange.
Absolutely. They know that interchange is already struggling, seriously strained, and it's only going to get worse, especially with the First Coast Expressway coming online eventually.
Right. Future traffic.
Yeah, if they don't sort out that interchange now, it could gridlock the whole northern part of the county. It's pretty non-negotiable.
Okay, so improve existing routes. But I noticed they're also building in alternatives, like redundancy. County Road 2209. Tell us about that one.
CR 2209, yeah, that's the county's main north-south backup route. It's vital. The plan is twofold. First, extend it from State Road 16 down to County Road 208. Second, completely overhaul that intersection at CR 210. It's notorious.
Why the big push for this specific road?
Well, the state actually requires an alternative north-south route parallel to I-95. So if I-95 gets shut down, accident, hurricane evacuation, whatever, there's another way through.
Yeah.
It's daily commute help, but also disaster readiness. Big time.
Makes total sense given I-95's importance. Now, the plan also flags a really serious, sometimes overlooked issue, rail safety, freight trains.
Yes, and it's framed as urgent. They're aggressively seeking federal matching funds for the US 1 FEC rail corridor. The goal is simple: eliminate or seriously upgrade dangerous railroad crossings.
Any specific examples driving this?
They explicitly mention a vehicle-train collision back in September 2024 at Alternate County Road 210. It just underscores, that these aren't just inconvenient, they're potentially deadly. It has to be fixed.
Wow, okay. That really highlights the need. Finally, for mobility protecting iconic roads and escape routes, A1A comes to mind.
Definitely. The plan for A1A is all about protection, making it more resilient. They want a federal-state partnership to upgrade it, shield it, using a mix of green and gray infrastructure.
Green and gray infrastructure, what does that look like in practice?
So gray is your traditional hard engineering, seawalls, bulkheads, concrete stuff. Green uses nature's defenses, restoring dunes, planting specific vegetation, creating living shorelines that absorb wave energy.
Interesting, like working with nature.
Exactly. They're targeting those really vulnerable spots like Volano Beach, marine land, trying smarter, more sustainable approaches where they can.
And what about State Road 206, another key evacuation route?
Yeah, for SR 206, they're basically telling FDOT, the State Transportation Department, to prioritize upgrades. Specifically, they want the PD&E process finished for the interchange at I-95.
PD&E, remind us what that is.
Right. It stands for Planning, Development, and Environment. It's the essential first step, all the studies and design work before major construction can even start.
So pushing for the PD&E completion means?
It means forcing the state to put that SR 206 I-95 interchange improvement on the fast track. Better access to I-95 in an emergency, that saves lives. Simple as that.
Okay, covered a lot on getting around. Capacity, backup, safety, evacuation. But none of that works if the place is constantly flooding. Let's shift to segment 2. Community resilience. Sounds like it's mostly about water, right? Floods, erosion, climate readiness.
Pretty much. If transport was about movement, resilience is about managing water. Too much water, mostly. They've got some major flood mitigation requests on the table. Inland, there's the long-running issue in Flagler Estates they want to tackle, and they're kicking off Phase 1 of the Hastings Deep Creek flood control system.
Phase 1 involves what exactly?
Bigger culverts, raising some roads, updating how they collect stormwater. Basic but critical stuff.
And are they doing similar things closer to the coast?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. They're prioritizing the Guana flood mitigation system that involves replacing weirs, changing how water flows through channels, and they're actively working to secure the federal money needed the cost share for that huge Ponte Vedra coastal storm risk management project.
That sounds like a massive undertaking.
It is. Millions of dollars to protect really valuable coastal areas.
Okay, beyond just stopping floods, I saw a big focus on water quality, specifically converting septic systems to sewer lines. That doesn't sound very exciting.
Huh? No, maybe not exciting, but incredibly important. It's fundamentally a public health thing. Filling septic tanks, especially in crowded areas or places that flood easily, they leach contaminants into the groundwater, into rivers.
So getting communities like St. Augustine South onto sewer
Is crucial for protecting the Matanzas River ecosystem. It means cleaner water, healthier communities. They're also pushing for water and sewer improvements in West Augustine, seeing it as key to helping that area develop economically.
And speaking of Matanzas, there's a special request for part of it, Summer Haven and the Old Matanzas River.
Yes, they want to designate it as a regional estuary protection area. Getting that designation will let them coordinate protection and restoration efforts across all levels of government, local, state, federal. Basically treat the whole system as one interconnected, vulnerable asset that needs a unified plan.
Makes sense. Before we move on, there was one legislative item about recovery after storms, Senate Bill 180. Why do they want that changed?
Right, SB 180. This gets into the nitty-gritty of operations. After a hurricane hits, how fast can the county actually buy supplies? Hire contractors. The current law, SB 180, puts some pretty strict purchasing rules on local governments right after a disaster is declared.
Which sounds like it could slow things down.
Exactly. St. Johns County is asking for a review, maybe modifications to get more flexibility, streamline the buying process so they can react faster based on what they need right then and there, not some standardized state checklist.
That seems like a really practical, smart request for faster recovery. Okay, let's move to our final segment. Policy, people, and preservation. This covers agriculture, health, and governance. Starting with ag, tell us about this Water First North Florida project.
Okay, this one's thinking long-term. Regional water security. It's about getting funding in phases for projects that recharge the aquifer, basically putting water back into the ground strategically.
And the benefits of that would be?
Well, quite a few, actually. It helps to restore natural flows to rivers and springs, supports wetlands, and this is key. Helps make sure there's a sustainable, affordable water supply for everyone in the region for decades.
And sticking with agriculture, they're also really focused on keeping farmland as farmland, right? Protecting family farms.
Absolutely. They're pushing the state to prioritize funding for two key programs.
Yeah.
The Rural and Family Lands Protection Program and the Agricultural Conservation Easement Program.
How do those help?
They basically pay farmers to keep their land in agriculture, preventing it from being sold off for development, like subdivisions. It protects those multi-generational farms. And there's a related kind of strategic legislative ask, too.
Which is?
They want the state to change the official definition of a rural community. So it includes farming areas in St. Johns County, specifically mentioning Hastings.
Why does that definition matter?
Because that label unlocks specific state funding pots for things like infrastructure. And it could help support agricultural tourism efforts that currently bypass the area. It's about getting access to resources.
Interesting angle. Okay, shifting gears a bit now to culture and history. A big item here is the Florida Museum of Black History campus.
Yes, a major request. They're asking for state funding for the planning, design, and construction of the campus to be located right there in St. Johns County. But the LAP goes further than just asking for construction money.
How so?
It specifies codifying a governance plan into state law and establishing a board of directors to oversee the whole process, commissioning, building, and running the museum long term. It's about ensuring it's done right and managed properly from the start.
Got it. Now, there are also two specific points about public safety and health. Workplace exposure and financial burdens.
Right. First, they're advocating for funding the Parkinson's Disease Research Act. This research, led by USF, aims to study how common Parkinson's is among first responders, police, fire, EMS, and whether it might be linked to routine exposure to toxic chemicals on the job.
And the goal of that research would be?
The hope is that if a link is established, it could lead to expanding presumptive disability provisions for those workers.
Okay, explain presumptive disability. What does that mean for a first responder?
Sure. Simply put, it's a legal rule that automatically assumes certain illnesses, if you get them and you're in that job, are work-related. So, if research links Parkinson's to their duties, these provisions would make it much easier, much faster, for affected first responders to get workers' comp, medical benefits, without having to fight to prove the connection individually.
That's huge for those individuals. Okay, and the second point about financial burdens. Sounds like the classic unfunded mandates issue.
That's exactly what it is. They're actively lobbying against state policies that force local governments to pay for relocating utility lines when the state does a road project, for example. Or policies that demand complex reports from public utilities without providing any money to actually do the work and compile the data.
So trying to keep costs down locally.
Right. It's about protecting the local budget and ultimately trying to keep utility rates affordable for residents. Pushing back against the state, shifting costs onto them.
Makes sense. One last legislative item before we wrap up. Something about Senate Bill 64 and water quality deadlines.
Yes, SB 64. This deals with eliminating surface water discharges, basically, treated wastewater going into rivers or the ocean. The current deadline to stop doing that is 2032. St. Johns County is asking for extension to 2036.
Why the delay?
It sounds like it's purely practical. Logistics and money. They argue that stretching the timeline allows them to better align the necessary, very expensive upgrades with when state and federal grant funding might actually become available. The goal is to make the transition affordable for ratepayers. Avoid sudden, massive hikes in utility bills to meet an earlier deadline.
Okay, that covers a lot of ground. So if you step back and look at this whole 2026 legislative action plan, all these different pieces, what's the single core message St. Johns County is sending to the state capital, to Tallahassee?
I think the core message is one of really comprehensive, layered preparedness and strategic investment. This plan isn't just about one thing. It's pushing for huge road projects like widening SR 16, yes. But at the same time, it's tweaking laws like SB 180 for better local control after disasters. It's trying to make the county physically stronger through resilience projects, culturally richer with the Museum of Black History, safer through rail crossing upgrades, and just generally more robust to handle the growth that's clearly not stopping.
And getting those requests heard, getting that funding, requires more than just sending a document. They need to show up, make their case. They have a big day planned in Tallahassee for that, right?
They do. St. Johns County Legislative Day. It's set for February 5th, 2026. A whole delegation, county officials, business leaders, community folks, they'll all head to the Capitol to basically show us the county's energy and importance.
And it sounds like they're making it more than just speeches and handshakes. They're bringing some local flavor.
Oh yeah, they're making it memorable. They plan to have legislators interact with reptiles for the St. Augustine Alligator Farm.
Reptiles? Seriously?
Apparently. And meet the sheriff's office robo-dog, which I definitely want to see.
I too.
Plus, sample local stuff from places like the St. Augustine Distillery and see a display about golf history from the Slammer and Squire and the PGA Tour.
That's actually a pretty clever lobbying strategy. Blend the serious policy asks with unique local charm. Make an impression.
Exactly. It's all designed to make sure St. Johns County gets the attention and hopefully the legislative support it needs as one of Florida's absolute fastest growing areas.
Indeed. Well, that gives us a really thorough picture. So as you, our listener, think about this whole strategy, this mix of roads, flood control, history, health, here's something to chew on. What really strikes you about this particular blend? This focus on major infrastructure, but also very specific environmental things like the Matanzas estuary, plus cultural projects, and even first responder health. And maybe more broadly, think about this. While these plans target St. Johns County's specific needs, how might their success or failure in tackling challenges like managing growth, controlling floods, or building those needed alternative routes set important precedents, maybe even models, for other rapidly growing counties across Florida?